As a research associate at the East Asian Institute, I'm excited to be here today with distinguished individuals and young scholars from further discussions and debate on Korean issues in social science and humanity. At this year's KF workshop, foreign residents from 34 countries participated in a series of lectures given by experts in different fields of study. Participants were invited to submit essays for today's event. The Next Generation Committee chose 4 candidates whose authors will be presenting their work shortly. Our conference today consists of 2 main sessions and an award ceremony. Each main session will feature 2 presentations and a short debate on the topic presented. After that, we will conclude our conference with an award ceremony, followed by a certificate presentation ceremony. After the conference, lunch will be provided to all participants. We will also like to remind you to please fill out the surveys that we handed out earlier at the reception desk. So when you fill out all the survey questionnaires, please nominate it to our staff member who has the staff name tags on their chest. So before we begin our first session, please allow me to introduce some of the individuals who have made this conference possible. Ladies and gentlemen, Si-Yeon Lee is the Director of Global Center Business Department of Korean Foundation. She will deliver today's conference opening remark. Let's welcome Si-Yeon Lee with a warm round of applause.
네, 안녕하세요. 한국국제교류재단 글로벌센터 사업부 이시연입니다. 귀중한 여름방학 때 한국에 대해서 공부하신다고 여러 차례 저희 재단도 방문해 주시고 열심히 프로그램에 임해 주셔서 너무 감사드립니다. 저희 KF하고 EAI에서 준비한 프로그램이 여러분들께서 한국을 조금이라도 더 잘 알아가시는데 도움이 많이 되셨으면 좋겠습니다. 저희 재단에서는 주로 외국분들이나 해외에서 한국을 알리는 사업을 하고 있는데요. 그렇게 한국만 일방적으로 알리는 거를 하는 게 아니라 저희가 한 10년 전부터는 한국에 있는 한국분들이 외국에 대해서도 배울 수 있도록 하는 프로그램을 만들고 있어요. 그래서 이제 저희도 이렇게 인연으로 연결이 되었으니까 나중에 저희 재단에서 또 여러분의 나라를 저희 한국분들에게 알리는데도 꼭 많은 역할을 해주셨으면 좋겠고요. 오늘 외국분들이 보는 한국이 어떤지 발표 내용이 너무 기대가 되고 또 활발한 토론도 이루어졌으면 좋겠습니다. 감사드립니다.
Thank you so much, Si-Yeon Lee. Now we will hear from Dr. Sinyi Oh, the Executive Director and Principal Researcher of the East Asian Institute. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Oh with a warm round of applause.
안녕하세요. EAI 사무국장 오승희입니다. 오늘 2019년 제2차 KF 코리아 워크숍의 환영사를 맡게 되어서 굉장히 영광으로 생각합니다. 저희 동아시아연구원은 2002년 5월 한국의 독립적인 싱크탱크로 설립된 이래로 한반도를 둘러싼 다양한 이슈와 동아시아와 세계 속의 한반도에 대해 활발하게 연구하며 눈부신 성장을 이루었습니다. 오늘날 동아시아연구원은 자유민주주의와 평화를 기반으로 한 사회의 발전에 기여하기 위한 목표로 세계 유수의 석학 및 전문가들을 연결하는 지식 네트워크 중심으로서 그 역할을 다하고 있습니다. 동아시아연구원은 한국 내에 있는 다양한 개인과 교류하고 기존의 네트워크를 심화시키기 위해 한국교류재단과 협력하고 있습니다. 단일민족 국가로 여겨질 수 있지만 최근 한국 사회 내에는 여러분과 같은 다양한 외국인들이 거주하고 있고 이분들의 수는 매년 급증하고 있습니다. 하지만 이분들이 한국을 경험하고 이해할 수 있는 기회는 아직도 제한적이며 서로의 경험과 아이디어를 공유하고 대화할 수 있는 네트워크 창구도 많지 않은 실정입니다. KF 코리아 워크숍은 이러한 한계를 해결하고자 만들어졌습니다. 특히 주한 외국인들의 관심에 맞추어서 변화하는 한국 사회의 다채로운 모습에 대한 이해와 공감의 폭을 확대하는 데 역점을 두고 프로그램을 기획하였습니다. 이에 주한 외국인들에게는 한국이라는 나라, 문화, 사회를 이해할 수 있는 의미 있는 기회가 되기를 바라고 있습니다. 이러한 맥락에서 올해 제7회차를 맞은 2019년 KF 코리아 프렌드십은 탐구, 소통, 공감이라고 하는 핵심어를 바탕으로 코리아 프렌드십 아카데미쿠스, 코리아 프렌드십 커뮤니쿠스, 그리고 코리아 프렌드십 엠파티쿠스라고 하는 한국을 듣고 말하고 만나는 프로그램으로 구성되어 있습니다. 넥스트 제너레이션 컨퍼런스는 이 두 번째 코리아 프렌드십 커뮤니쿠스에 해당되는 프로그램입니다. 여러분들이 8월 초에 들었던 다양한 한국 사회 탐구 강좌들을 활용하여 오늘 이 자리에서 한국 사회에 대해서 함께 토론하고 더 많이 배우는 시간이 되시기를 바랍니다. 오늘 이 자리를 빛내주신 여러분들이 오늘의 발표와 토론을 통해 많은 것들을 얻고 소통하고 공감하시기를 진심으로 기원합니다. 마지막으로 이번 워크숍에서 귀한 강연을 해주셨던 많은 강연자분들께 감사의 말씀을 드리고 무엇보다도 지원과 협력을 아끼지 않으시는 국제교류재단에도 감사의 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 그리고 무엇보다도 또 프로그램 준비와 운영을 위해서 혼신을 다해주신 동아시아연구원의 연구원분들께도 감사드립니다. 참가자 여러분들 와주셔서 진심으로 감사드리고 오늘 이 자리를 통해서 한국에 대해서 더 많은 논의들이 이루어지기를 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oh. Now we'll proceed to the first session of today's conference, New Perspectives on Korean Culture. I would like to invite the presenters and discussants to join us on the stage now. Our main sessions will be moderated by Professor Sammy Yoon from Yonsei University. Please welcome Professor Yoon with a warm round of applause.
I think I'll just speak from the table. And so just as Ms. Shin Young-baek explained to us, we'll have two sessions. And the first session will be on new perspectives on Korean culture. And so we'll hear from the presenters first, each one presenting for 15 minutes. And then we will have a round of discussion from the panelists. And then we'll open the floor to the participants today that are here today so that we can have a fuller discussion. So, well, that's it from us. Are you ready? Yeah. So she will present on Confucianism and its influence on the Korean society.
Hello everyone, my name is Beste and I'm from Turkey. I am a lawyer. I'm currently doing my Lawyers in Law in Seoul National University. So today I'm going to make a presentation about Confucianism and its influence on the Korean society. As you can see, it's a very wide topic, so I chose a very specific part of it due to limited time and word account in the essay. So first of all, I would like to explain a little bit about Confucianism. I'm pretty sure that everybody heard the word Confucianism, but what does it mean? So first, if you have ever wondered how the Confucius looked like, this is a portrait of Confucius from around 500 BC. So Confucianism is kind of an ideology where the correct behavior, loyalty, and obedience to hierarchy is important. So it's created by the Kung Futsu, I don't know how to pronounce it, it's a Chinese name, and which is Latinized as Confucius in English. So he was a teacher, lived around 600 BC, 6th century BC, and later his books came to today. So unlike Judaism, Islam, or Christianity, in Confucianism there isn't any one God that you have to worship. So it's a little different from any religion that we know today. It's more like humanness and kindness and being good inside. So there's since the human behavior is very important in Confucianism, there's two very important concepts in Confucianism. One is Zhang. Zhang is your inward actions, which means you have to be good inside. You have to sitting at home hoping good for humankind. But on the other hand, Li is your actions to other people. We have to be good and loyal to others, and since your actions to others is very important, ethic, customs, and morality is very important. In Confucianism, there is 5 key relationships, which is the main topic of my essay and right now my presentation. There, 1, the relationship between father and son. 2, the relationship between ruler and ruled. 3, the relationship between husband and wife. 4, the relationship between old and young siblings, also like the old and young people. And 5, the relationship between friends and friends. So as you can see, there's number 2 and 3 are the bold ones, so these are the main topic of my presentation. So as we can see from here, there is always one superior. In this relationship, there is one superior, and one is like not the who needs to obey to him. So in this relationship, there is always one with authority, and the other one who needs to obey. Also, as you can see, most of the relationships comes from the family members. So in Confucianism, relationship between the family is very important, and if family is good and happy, it's believed that the village and the country will be happy and good. So everything starts with the family. So when we come to Korea, the first of all that we see and experience every day in our Korean society, the relationship between Sanbae and Hubei. So we are all foreigners, and since we came to Korea, we always try to figure out how we are going to act to others. We are constantly experiencing like somebody coming to us asking our maybe age or our position in life, because everything defines or everything is in your actions shaped according to your position in life. So your age, job, even your sex is very important. What is more, if you're learning Korean, you probably see that there are very strange or unusual words in Korean language that we don't see in Western languages, like older brother, older sister, younger brother, younger sister. Also, there are very different levels of respect in Korean language that you have to use while speaking to others. So how you speak to somebody is changes to whom you speak and what you speak about. So this all come from Confucianism and the relationship of ruler and the ruled. So as I mentioned before, in Confucianism, the family is really important and is the key relationship. So in South Korean businesses or sometimes in the schools, you are expected to see your workplace or maybe school too as your family. So your seniors are your brothers and sisters, and your boss is your father. So you have to respect them and you have to obey them. And also, what is more, in Confucianism, instead of individual persons, the community is important. So it's not important what you need, it's more important than what your group of people needs. So it's always causing some kind of problems within the working place. So this is one of the very recent news from, I think, 21st of April. The 4 strings after work takes life of neighbor occur. So if you are working, or if you probably invited some kind of school club or after work, we call MT, or like a dining out. So in your dining out, when you go out, if you have some kind of seniors or boss, you are expected to serve them. We have to give chopsticks and spoon and serve drink, and if you are eating meat, you have to cook meat for them. So your duty is serving them and making them happy. So what is more, you cannot say no. So if they ask you to drink, you have to drink. So this is a very recent news, but it's not the only one. I don't think that this will be the last one. So it's a news about a 20-year-old person, I don't know the gen, who started working in the automotive company Hyundai. After the work, they go outing, and he's forced to drink, and he died probably the alcohol poisoning the next day. So it's one of the biggest problems, like not able to say no to your seniors. So the second type of relationship that I want to mention is the relationship between the the husband and wife, also man and female. So in Confucianism, there are very strict rules in society, and you have to understand them and act according to them. So men are the breadwinners of the family, and the women are responsible for child rearing and housework. So a woman only can only learn to care for family and how to housekeep. But on the other hand, men are expected to be the best in their version. So if they need education, they can educate themselves. If they want to do something, they can do, because they have to be the best of whatever they do in their life. So I am a lawyer, so I'm going to talk about more like a legal aspect and the legal norms, because this is what I know best. So when the Confucianism came to Joseon Dynasty, before it came to Joseon Dynasty, it has believed that like the man, according to papers that I read, the man and woman are equal. But after Confucianism, suddenly in inheritance law, something changed. Women cannot inherit their inheritance from their father. So when the father died, all inheritance go to the older brother. Because as a woman, your duty is get married, and when you get married, your older brother is going to pay for your wedding, or whatever you need to pay. So you don't need to inherit that money. Sadly, this legal norm came until 1991. Like until 1991 in Korea, none of the women can inherit their inheritance from their father, and I think it's very sad. What is more, when we come to the labor law, we are hearing news about discrimination within the workplace. Also, during the application process. So women are not just being discriminated in the working, just before started the working, during the application process. There are a lot of legal cases, like criminal cases and judgments about how the president of really big companies like Shinhan Bank or Korea Kukmin Bank, or I think there's one Korea Gas Safety Corporation, where they forced the people to eliminate the women candidates and hiring men employees instead of female employees. And I think the CEO of the Korea Gas Safety Corporation got 4-year jail time due to discrimination to female candidates during the... sorry, okay. I am dying here, sorry. What is more like, I would like to talk about the family law too. So I am a member of Rotary Club, and we have been volunteering with a single mother organization called Interim. So when we say single mother, it's like a female who give a birth to a child without being married. So it's a very common thing nowadays, but it's still a taboo in Korean society. So when we are talking with the mothers of these children, they ask me like, in Turkish law, like, does the father of the child need to give some kind of money to the child support, like we call it child support? So I said like, yes, of course. Like apparently in Korea, I am not sure, but they told me that there is no obligation to give any kind of money to children if you are not married, like, or divorced. So there is no legal term to give money to children. I think it's kind of weird because it's not just about the mother, it's about the child protection. So for example, in Turkish law, we have a law called Protection of Family and Children. And if you are getting divorced, even without you don't ask for the court, the judge automatically gives some kind of money to the children because it needs to be protected and it needs to be continue their like school life and the daily life. And if you are not married, you can always go to the court and ask some kind of support from the father of the child because the child belongs to both parts, not just the mother. So when we came to the labor law again, there are so many statistics where it shows that like Korean workplace is very bad place for the female workers. So this is one of the statistics from OECD, and it says like, I don't know, can you see that South Korea is the 29th country among 30 countries, where it's the worst place to be like a worker in a business. So this is another new, and I think it's a very old one because it's dated 2007, so it's almost 12 years ago. Once again, a Korean person, a Korean female worker, fights back against a business forced drinking. So what is important for me, when this woman go to the court ruled against the violation of human dignity. So it's very rare norm to go according to me, because for example in Turkish law or any European law, there's norms against discrimination within the workplace. Like we call it mobbing. It's a very wild topic, like the physical and psychological assault in the workplace. There are so many protections and norms, but since in Korea there is nothing like that, they go violation of human dignity while punishing the boss. So this is the end of my presentation. I choose try to explain two types of relationship: husband and wife, senior and hobby. So I think there's some kind of it's good to respect your elders, seniors, whatever, due to their experience in life and their age. But when it's come to something forcing you that you don't want to do it, it's kind of need to change or some kind of supervise. So that's why I write about it and then I presented about it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for shedding light on how Confucianism still has an influence on Korean culture. So could Mathilde Merchetti get ready? So she will talk to us about why doesn't Korea have a Trevor Noah in its comedy scene when comedy shows and satire are much appreciated in Korea.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mathilde Marchetti, and I'm currently studying at Seoul National University. So today I will present the essay I prepared for this workshop. And as you can see here, there's a little bit of a table of contents, and I will go through each topic. So why the topic of my essay? The question I wanted to find an answer to is this: why doesn't Korea have a Trevor Noah in its comedy scene when comedy shows and satire are much appreciated in the country? So what led me to this topic? I think everyone recalls the lectures in the workshop, and we had the chance to listen to many interesting lectures. But I think the one that struck me the most was about Korean mass media, taught by Professor Son Jie from Iwan University. And so during the lecture, she mentioned this South African comedian, Trevor Noah. And for those of you who don't know, he hosts a comedy show, a satirical comedy show in the US. And during the lecture, someone asked her if there was a similar comedian in the Korean comedy scene, and she said no. So from that moment, I thought it could be interesting to know more about the comedy shows and satire in South Korea, especially because while thinking about that, I'm from Italy and we have the same kind of comedian, and his name is Mauricio Brozza. He does basically the same thing that Trevor Noah does. So before starting my explanation about my topic, I thought it would be interesting to know a little bit about the importance of political satire. So there are three main reasons why political satire is important. It is a way of putting forward political arguments where they're forbidden. It gives the citizens some food for thought on political news, and it gives more opportunities to be informed about current political news. And so this finding while doing my research led me to think a little bit about the accessibility of political satire in different countries, because political satire and freedom of speech are really, really important. So maybe it was just my opinion, but I think that most people believe that there's a relation between developed countries and freedom of speech. So I wanted to do like a little bit of research about that. And I actually was surprised because I found out that countries like Estonia or Uruguay rank way above countries like South Korea, my home country, and the United States in terms of freedom of speech. Nevertheless, I think the lack of political satire in South Korea is a little bit concerning, because even though Italy and the United States rank below South Korea, political satire plays a big role in society, and it is very accepted by the government as well. So the main goals of my essay, I wanted to find out the causes of the absence of political satire in broadcasting channels, and if there are some alternatives, such as platforms where comedians and content creators could find a place to state their mind openly and freely without being banned. In order to understand a little bit about censorship in South Korea, I went through the history to understand the relation between censorship and South Korean governments. And I found out that the main difference was the target. So before, as you can see, the main target were North Korean supporters and rebellions against the government, whereas now it's political satire, comedians and content creators, or cartoonists and other people against the government. So the question I wanted to ask was, why are comedians and content creators afraid to speak their mind nowadays? And mainly for 3 reasons. So cancellation of comic segments in TV shows, webtoon bans, and closing of YouTube channels. So of course, in order to support my thesis, I brought some evidence about both traditional and new platforms where we can see comedy shows and political satire. So what I mean for comedy shows, for traditional platforms is broadcasting channels, so comedy shows. And I divided comedy shows in direct censorship and indirect censorship. So apparently, during the presidential race in 2012, this show called SNL Korea created a sketch called Yoido Teletubbies, which became really popular because of its depiction of the candidates. But when Park Geun-hye was elected in 2013, the government took action and these segments got cancelled, and it came back just after her impeachment. So another evidence is about this comedy show, and it shows, in my opinion at least, indirect censorship. Because in this SBS comedy show called People Looking for Laughter, there was a sketch called LTE News, and in 2014, some comedians in an episode, they decided to make fun of Park Geun-hye's political performance. And the strange thing was that a few days after, SBS decided to remove the episode itself on its streaming website. And at first I was a little bit confused. So, but later I found out that in Korea, apparently, the heads of public broadcasters are nominated or need the approval of the president to be like appointed in that position. So it's pretty common actually to see this kind of self-censorship in public broadcasting channels. And now we'll move to more modern platforms such as Webtoon and YouTube. So I think there was a little bit of a difference some years ago and nowadays, because at first these two type of websites, thanks in a way to their scarce popularity, they gave a chance to comedians and content creators, but just like people in general, to speak their mind freely without being censored in a way. But in the recent years, there was like a big growth of a fast growth of internet users, and people nowadays, and I'm sure all of you do as well, we use the internet as our main source of information for any kind of news. And for this reason, people are getting censored more and more for what they say on this kind of website. But I will go through with some examples. So first, with webtoons. So in 2013, so during Park Geun-hye's administration, this webtoon called Mazo and Sari was removed from webtoon websites because apparently the author was accused of criticizing the government at that time, and even though he said many times it wasn't his intention to criticize anything about the government, his sponsors decided to pressure him a lot to remove it for the safety of his career at least. And then we have YouTube. So I think YouTube is a little bit more of a complex topic because YouTube has its own censorship policies, and so it's really easy. On one hand, it's really easy to report political satire, but to report people in general, and so a video or YouTubers, and we can all do it really easily. But on the other hand, I think it's also hard to see if the government took action in some ways to censor or ban some kind of video on this platform. Nevertheless, I found some interesting articles about Moon Jae-in's administration, which might sound a little bit contradictory, but basically, at the beginning of last year, the government said that they would do whatever it took to them to protect people and to try to prevent them being censored when stating their opinions. But recently, it has been found out that the government has also tried to censor many of the contents of Korean YouTubers who had political views, which was kind of like against the recent political policies or actions. So now we arrive to the conclusion. So is there a possibility for political satire to become more famous or accepted in Korea? I think right now it's going to be a little bit hard because first, South Korea is a restrictive country for what concerns political comedy, as I showed you before with my evidence. And second, no matter which government is there, so no matter if a government is more liberal than another one, censorship will always happen in some kind of way. And third, the majority, I think the society is not ready, because I asked some of my friends and people I know, Koreans of course, and almost all of them, they told me Koreans like to distinguish politics from comedy. So either you talk about politics or you talk about comedy. So I really wish that in the recent future, Korea will be able to accept more this kind of comedy, because to me it's really useful to get to know more about political news in a different way. But for now, I also think it's going to be a little bit hard. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you very much for listening.
Great. So thank you for that presentation. So we'll first hear from panelists that prepared comments for the two speakers. So Mina, right?
First, thank you for having me here today and for allowing me to speak here. I really enjoyed your presentation last night. 먼저 제가 이 발표하고 에세이를 읽으면서 느꼈던 점은 한국 사회에서 저는 계속 여기서 나고 자랐기 때문에 정확하게 느끼지 못했던 그런 유교 문화나 그런 것을 이제 구체적인 예시와 본문적 지식과 경험을 활용하셔서 설명한 것이 굉장히 인상 깊게 다가왔습니다. 특히 상속법을 가지고 상속법과 노동법을 가지고 이제 외국인이 이렇게 유교 문화와 연결시켜가지고 설명하셨다는 부분이 굉장히 인상 깊었고, 제가 판단했을 때 에세이도 그렇고 발표도 그렇고 크게 세 부분으로 나눠진다고 생각을 했는데요. 첫 번째는 이제 위계질서와 관련된 부분, 그리고 두 번째로는 남녀 차별, 그리고 나머지 마지막 부분은 상속법과 노동법 등 구체적인 법률 현황을 가지고 이제 남녀 차별을 설명했다고 생각합니다. 먼저 제가 첫 번째로 말씀드리고 싶었던 그 첫 번째 부분 위계질서 부분과 관련해서는 앞에서 이제 발표에서도 그렇게 말씀을 하셨고 에세이에서도 제가 그런 인상을 받았는데, 그 오륜이라고 하는 그 한국 사회에서 중요한 5가지 관계에 대해서 그 메인 아규먼트를 이끌어 가시는 부분이 있는데, 이 부분에 대한 설명을 조금 구체적으로 더 해주셨으면 좋았을 것 같다는 생각을 했습니다. 일단 그리고 제가 또 느꼈던 많은 예시를 주셨는데 나보다 연장자나 지위가 높은 분들을 만날 때 이제 어떤 말을 해야 하는지, 어떤 행동을 해야 하는지, 또 제게 주어진 책무를 어떤 식으로 해결해 나가는지, 이런 것들에 대해서 굉장한 압박을 느끼고 있는 부분을 설명해 주신 부분을 좋았는데, 발표에서처럼 그 부분이 그 어떤 한국 사회가 강요하는 일종의 커뮤니티 정신, 그런 공동체 정신 때문에 기인한 것이다 라는 부분을 에세이에서도 밝혀주셨으면 조금 더 좋았을 거라는 생각이 들고요. 그리고 이러한 부분은 사실 꼭 유교 문화권 안에 있는 한국 사회의 문제뿐만이 아니라 그 비교적 자유롭다고 여겨지는 서구 사회에서도 이런 부분은 어느 정도 얼마든지 있을 수 있다고 생각하거든요. 그래서 이렇게 다양한 예시를 들어주신 것까지는 좋았지만, 이 부분에 대해서 조금 더 그 한국에서 경험하신 구체적인 상황이 있다면 하나를 조금 구체적으로 더 설명해 주셨으면, 그리고 또 이것을 그 5가지 관계 중에 어떤 관계가 조금 더 밀접하게 관련이 있는지 풀어내 주셨으면 더 좋지 않았을까 하는 생각이 듭니다. 두 번째로 남녀 차별을 말씀해 주고 계신데, 이 부분에 대해서도 조금 더 그 부부 관계에 언급된 것이 많은데, 이 부분을 조금 더 사회적인 측면에서 더 범위를 넓혀서 설명해 주신 부분이 저는 좋았고, 이제 조금 더 트랜지션이 법을 설명하는 데 있어서 그래서 조금 더 매끄러웠으면 하는 아쉬움이 저는 개인적으로 있었습니다. 세 번째로 이제 법과 관련해서 여성의 권리를 존중하는 것이 법적으로 명문화되는 것이 굉장히 필요하다고 말씀을 해주셨는데, 저도 이 부분에 대해서 굉장히 공감을 합니다. 최근에 이제 현실적으로 이제 유교 사상에 대해서 남녀 차별이 어느 정도 있고, 저 같은 경우도 이제 학교에 들어오기 전에 취업 준비를 하면서 내가 여자라서 떨어지는 건 아닌가 하는 생각을 많이 했던 것도 사실이고요. 그런데 이제 최근에 이제 어느 정도 이런 남녀 차별에 대해서 사회적으로 담론이 일어나기 시작한 것은 아무래도 페미니즘과 관련된 부분인데, 제가 생각했을 때는 이게 현대사회에서 이 과정에서 그 건장한 토론이 이루어졌으면 좋았겠지만, 안타깝게도 남녀 서로 집단 간의 혐오도 함께 생겨난 것도 사실입니다. 그래서 여성에게 좀 더 유리한 것을 부분이 들어갈 수 있도록 법을 명문화하고 개정하는 것이 과연 그 본문에 언급된 프랑스나 스웨덴처럼 스웨덴 수준의 평등 사회 혹은 더 나아가서 경제 발전의 원동력이 될 수 있을지 이 부분에 대한 조금 더 그 인과관계를 조금 더 뚜렷하게 해주셨으면 좋지 않았을까 하는 생각이 들었습니다. 저 같은 경우는 이렇게 단순히 법으로 명문화하고 제정화하는 것이 상징적인 효과는 줄 수 있지만 정말 이게 직접적인 요소가 되기 위해서는 수많은 시간이 들 것 같다고 생각했기 때문입니다. 마지막으로 이제 국제화된 시대의 흐름을 잘 이용해서 한국 사회에 만연해 있는 유교 문화의 잘못된 잔재들을 우리가 어떻게 현대화시키면 좋을지 이제 한국에서 생활하시는 외국인들 분들과 함께 논의를 해보면 좋을 것 같다고 생각했습니다. 저도 유교 같은 경우는 이제 학교에서 배운 것도 있고 제가 생활하면서 느낀 부분도 있고 항상 되게 오래되고 낡은 것이기 때문에 저는 이것에 대해서 어떻게 발전시켜야 되겠다는 생각을 사실 하지 못하고 단순히 유교 사상을 잘못되고 타파해야 하는 것이라고 생각했던 제 부분이 있었는데 이제 이 글을 읽고 나서 이 문제에 대해서 말씀해 주신 것처럼 국제화 사회에 더 그리고 한국에서 지내시는 외국인 분들도 많이 늘어나기 때문에 그런 부분을 제가 속한 저희 세대뿐만이 아니라 미래 세대도 함께 끊임없이 해결해야 되고 고민해 나가야 할 것이 일종의 숙명이라고 생각했습니다. 감사합니다.
If you're ready.
So I would like to say that yes, in Korean society, Confucianism is very prevalent, and that can be seen in the current scenario. And one of the most important reasons for it is you can see Koreans restricting themselves by mixing with the foreigners. So this exists in the older generation in Korea, but it also exists in the youth of Korea. Not all the young generation, they want to mingle with foreigners. So if there is no cultural exchange, they don't learn to diversify themselves, or even if they do learn by books or something, they don't accept it that easily in their day-to-day lives. And for the next topic on Trevor Noah, I would say that Korean society is still very respect. They think that it is a respect to and that they should show this to their politicians, because always they had a king, a ruler who had to rule, and they had to go request them for things. So they consider them as gods, or as someone who will do things for them, who will fulfill their requests. So it is just somehow related to the Confucianism as well, because once you start the concept of respect over here is in a way that you just can't argue. So yes, I would like to say this. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Joel, if you're ready.
So thank you. I'll comment mostly on your talk on why there's no Trevor Noah. I think maybe my main point of criticism is I would have asked Weiss to know John Stewart or no Stephen Colbert. That's mostly my personal preference. I think it's what I found interesting with this when I was reading the paper was that it's the kind of the question which I kind of want to know the answer to, but I haven't really thought to ask the question. So that's made it a very interesting paper to read. And I basically agree with the reasons you give for why there is no character like this. I would say that again, just like Kumari just said, that you can certainly tie in this idea of Confucianism to explain why we don't really see these kind of comedians in Korea as well, if you take a bit of a longer perspective. Fundamentally, political satire is about speaking truth to power, and I think that the way, if we look at more comparative perspective, the way that is done is very different in the West compared to Korea. So you're from Italy, and I know that Italy has a very, should I say, vigorous or active political climate. I think you have had an average of one prime minister per year for the last 60 years or something. So it's definitely a kind of different political climate over there. And what's interesting is also that one of the most classic works of political satire came from Italy, which was The Prince, written by Machiavelli a very long time ago. Again, there are similar types of examples, like A Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift is another classic in kind of the Western political satire. Which, by the way, The Modest Proposal was that in order to solve the crisis, like the hunger crisis in Ireland, then people should eat their children. So it was kind of quite radical at the time. But the way that in the West you speak truth to power is often through these, like it's kind of often channeled in this way through a single person like Trevor Noah or Machiavelli at the time. This is not really how, at least in my understanding, how Koreans speak truth to power. It's, like we said, it's a more collective society. So of course you have exceptions like Kim Tae-jong, who was, a very prolific political activist. But generally, you will see either criticism towards political leaders, like the protest that you saw against President Park. They will be organized on a very huge and collective scale, but there's not really one person that's kind of channeling all that criticism. And similarly, I think that when Koreans actually do very poignant political criticism, that's also not, might be directed more towards a general phenomena as opposed to individual people. So I think the best example of this is probably Gangnam Style, which is it's a social criticism rather than focused political criticism of the individual. So that's what I would like to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you. So our last panelist, Jiwon.
Firstly, thank you. I really appreciate both the essay and the presentation. Before anything, I really like the title of the essay. It really got me thinking because I was generally intrigued, questioning myself, does our society really need political satire to begin with? Is it really important in a democratic society? And do we really have very little political satire in our society? Maybe I'm not sure for the first question, but for the second question, I definitely agree that South Korean society does not have a widely enjoying one-person-led political satire comedy show. But I think what the panelists just said regarding linking Confucianism, I thought it was really interesting because I've never thought about it. But even so, I do have a little different view on how the presenter believes regarding how the Korean society, together with the future government, is not ready to sort of accept political satire comedy. For me, the current state of South Korea is more of a vibrant society with guaranteed wide spectrum of political freedom, even to the extent of political satires in the media. There are political satires actually going on, like KBS Concept or like so many YouTube channels. Just by like looking at your examples, it feels like we're living like North Korea or whatnot, right? There are counter narratives, but at the same time, I do agree that South Korea is not necessarily very comfortable or very used to consuming politics in the form of an enjoyable comedy show. I totally agree. And we kind of distinguish politics from comedy. But for the evidence regarding Park Geun-hye administration, I think the evidence of the censored materials during the Park Geun-hye administration, the SNL Korea, Uchasa, webtoons, and all of that examples are actually during Park Geun-hye administration. I don't think there were necessarily enough to explain how South Korea is, so to speak, not ready. I cannot deny that the administration at that time was not so ready to accept political satire because there's so many examples that you found, right? But at the same time, there was a response from the public against the so-called blacklist. And the outcome of the candlelight protest was impeachment of the president. And so I think that's enough to show how check and balance does exist in the Korean society and for the pursuit of freedom of political expression. So for me, I think it demonstrates how individuals are politically empowered and sensitive, but not in that form. And for the Moon Jae-in administration part, there are actually a lot of controversies over how we should evaluate the proposed outline of KCC. I think that's the thing that you saw with KCC in Korean is 방송통신위원회. I think if you interpret it as Moon Jae-in administration censorship on YouTube, but there are also some people who say, hey, we need a government that needs to limit the accessibility of harmful material such as like hate speech against social minorities. So, and these are actual contents of petition that's actually found at the Blue House homepage. So I think it would have been better if you could like elaborate on which part of the outline that you found was really problematic and why it's such a serious concern, instead of saying like it's bad and political satire is beneficial. So I think at the end of the day, I saw the essence and importance of this essay and how it shines lights on South Korea to somewhat being uncomfortable or uneasy and rigid and pushing political content into the realm of comedy and consume it in a form of political satire. Even more interesting, there's a saying in Korean, 우리나라는 풍자와 해악의 민족이다, which means Korea is a nation of satires and sarcastic sense of humor. But in fact, it may even be the case that we have a bitter history of censorship during the colonialism and authoritarianism within our history. So I think maybe it ironically shaped how we deal with politics within our society, maybe a little bit more careful or maybe a little bit more exceptional than other content. I think this is something that other Korean panelists could also add on, and also other non-Korean panelists or even in the audience can add on regarding their stories in their own countries. Thank you.
Thank you for the last comment. So let's have the speakers respond to the panelists first. So
Thank you very much for your comments. So, Minhe, so you asked some kind of experience, like as an example from my life. I don't really have much Korean friends, so I usually hang out with foreigners, and I always confuse like how to act to other people, especially when I get to meet them. So when I first started the school, I joined the calligraphy club, and like besides me, everybody was Korean people. And we were having an empty, and okay, now I'm confused because I'm the oldest one, but they have my seniors when we compare our time in our school, but we are in a club. So like I'm really confused and I don't know anybody, so I always try to act respect to people I don't know. So they were pouring drinks and I was holding cup by two hands because that's only thing I know in Korea, like you don't just hold one hand. One of my friends looked at me and like she was really sad and she was like, aren't we friends? Why you are holding your cup with two hands? And I don't know, like I'm still confused about how to act to other people because there are so many rules and that's my personal experience. So what is more, you mentioned about my article and how the gender equality and the economy is related. So in the United Nations, when they published the Sustainable Development Goals, the fifth one was gender equality. So gender equality is very important in development of any country and the world. So my sentence from my article was related to a paper that I read. So in Confucianism, it was 1,500 years ago, and it has believed that giving certain rules to people, men and women, is better for the society because, as I mentioned before, in Confucianism, instead of individual, the groups are more important. So giving certain roles to people will make first family and the village and the empire will be more successful. But today, I think it's failing. So there's so many statistics like from France. In France, the 50% of the female are unmarried and have kids because they think that they don't need to be married to have kids. They just live together and have kids. Or in Sweden, it's very similar thing. They don't they are going against the rules that Confucianism giving to females, like giving birth and taking care of home. They're just like hanging out with their boyfriends, having kids and working. So it's not really related to having a sustainable economic with this roles that Confucianism give to female and male. It's not very related. So statistics show that when you create just a perfect harmony within the society between male and female, and without worrying about their roles, it will be better for economy and politics. What is more, how can we modernize the Confucianism rules? So we are living in a democratic country. I don't think it will be easy to just get rid of Confucianism because it's a 1,500 ideology and you are being taught within the school. And I think it's not a bad thing because Confucianism has so many virtues in it. So respecting your elders is not a bad thing. But the problem is you are experiencing everything in an extreme side. So you shouldn't be go so extreme while expressing your love to your seniors. So I think in a democratic country there should be some kind of legal protection to who has been discriminated or who has been violated. So it will be better to create from inheritance law that I give so many examples in my presentation about legal norms. So instead of modernizing, first giving some kind of legal protection, and then it will be I think the cases will be less because according to my experience, when if you're experiencing some kind of discrimination within the workplace, and the boss needs to pay some kind of compensation money to the woman because he has been experiencing some kind of mobbing and physical or psychological assault, then they stop because they don't want to pay money to anybody, and they always worry about how they look in the society, and they don't want to embrace, in our company this is happening, or they don't want to show their names in the newspapers. So when you create some kind of legal protection, it will help to reduce the violation of human rights. So that's what I thought. Thank you.
So thank you for your comments. I'm aware of everything you said about Confucianism, and also I agree with the other panelists that Confucianism is not a bad thing, because respect is really important, and I wish in this school we had a little bit more of respect for everyone in general. But I also think because it brought to the extreme, sometimes people should have a little bit more of a right to speak their mind freely without worrying about others. And yes, probably I'm biased because I'm from Italy and really like to speak our minds into being ourselves in a way. So, and is it also true that West and East are different in dealing with this kind of problems? But still, I truly believe that satire is important for everyone to try to see political news or whatever issue in a different point of view. So in order to step out of your comfort zone sometimes. And for what concerns mundane and the controversial articles I found, I only focused my research on political satire. So I only saw and understood those articles to support my my thesis. But I do think it's not bad to then certain videos and certain topics, such as hate speech about minorities, as you said before, and also to try to eliminate, in a way, if possible, also fake news, which is becoming a big thing everywhere in the world, not only in South Korea. Yes, so that's it. I think I answered your questions. I hope so. Thank you.
Right, so if somebody in the floor has any questions or comments or feedback, we'd like to
정치와 코미디가 분리되어 있는 한국 사회를 미디어를 통해서 밝혀내신 것이 흥미로웠습니다. 그 이유로서 일전에 예시를 들어준 개발도상국에서는 자유 관련 스피치 부분이다라고 하는 부분이 한국 사회에서도 어느 정도 통용될 수 있다고 저는 생각하는데요. 앞서 지원 씨가 말씀해 주셨듯이 한국 사회에서는 민주화 경험을 통해서 여러 인권 탄압이 된 현실이라든지 민주화를 이루어내는 과정에서 정치적인 무관심이나 피로감이 많이 생긴 것이 사실입니다. 그래서 오히려 정치에 내가 어느 정도 관계를 멀리하고 있다, 나는 정치와는 관심이 없다라는 걸 표현하는 것을 한국 사람들은 오히려 미덕이라고 생각하는 경향도 어느 정도 있었습니다. 그래서 이거는 저의 개인적인 생각이지만 이번 기회를 통해서 한국 정치 근현대사에 대해서도 관심을 가져보시는 것도 굉장히 좋은 경험일 것이라고 생각했습니다. 네, 감사합니다.
anyone else?
개인적으로 저 유교 발표에 대해서 되게 흥미롭게 들었습니다. 근데 제가 개인적으로 궁금한 게 있어서 질문을 드리고 싶은 게 싱글맘에 대한 사례를 드시면서 싱글맘들은 미혼의 상태에서 아이를 낳았는데도 경제적인 지원을 받지 못한다고 말씀을 해주셨던 것 같습니다. 그런데 한국의 가족법에서는 그런 이혼 상태에서 아이를 생기면 보통 여성 쪽에만 그런 아이가 인정이 되고 남성 쪽에서는 아버지로 인정이 되는 따로 인지라는 과정을 거쳐서 그 자식을 자신의 아이라는 가정으로 인정을 하는 과정이 있어야지 자신의 아이가 형성되기 때문에 그때 어떤 양육권 같은 게 인정이 된다고 알고 있습니다. 그래서 혹시 다른 미혼 국가에서 가정을 미혼녀들이 미혼 싱글맘들이 자신을 양육하는 국가들에서는 그런 다른 아버지가 이런 자식들을 인지하는 과정이나 그런 부분들이 어떻게 되고 있는지가 궁금해서 질문드립니다.
Okay, so I think in many countries, in many countries, like when you give a birth to a child and there's a father in your ID card, there's father and mother. In many countries, I don't know, like, okay, I'm not going to talk general because in Turkey, you cannot, it cannot be empty, the father. So you just give a name as a father in your ID card because a child cannot be motherless or fatherless. But as a mother, I give a name, but that name cannot be a biological father of that child. So I can't just like argue that, hey, this is my father of my child, but the father has the right to sue me to have some kind of genetic test to prove that if that child is his or not. Also, I think like it's kind of, isn't it weird, or I don't know, like when you divorce, for example, sorry, let me take back. In Turkish law, you are married couple, and when there is a child within that marriage, officially is the father, the husband and the wife are the mother and the father of that child. So if the father didn't argue that, oh, my wife cheated me and I'm not the father of this child, officially, without any comment about that, is the father of the child. So am I understanding right, when they get divorced, is the father of the child automatically deleted and the father needs to do something to become the father of that child? I didn't understand that part of the question.
So you're saying that he was considering single mothers.
Okay, single mothers.
Not divorcees.
Okay, in single mothers, So you are unmarried, so you give a birth and you go to the administration to have an ID card for the child. The father's part of the ID card cannot be empty, so you have to give some kind of name. But the name that you gave, for example, I give your name as my father of my child, and you are arguing that he's not your kid. So you have the right to go to court to prove that he's your kid or not your kid. But I think in many other countries it's the same process.
Any other comments, questions? Yep.
Thank you for the presentation and discussion. I have a question for Matilda on political satire. I'm coming from Turkey and I understand the meaning of the political satire and the democratic expression, the right of self-expression, but I don't understand why we have to create kind of a simple correlation between democratic expression and individual rights and the democracy, because we have different kind of cultures, different kind of societies. So what is the basic logic behind that we create that link between the political satire and the politics? Because let me give you an example. In Turkey, the politics is kind of a serious stuff, and the comedy is like entertaining yourself. So if you want to put them in together, so you make it like a unserious stuff. So do we have to make it every democracy as a Western type, or do we have to find another way, like a middle way? So what do you think about that? And thank you so much.
And to add on to that point, actually, I also wondered about what is the end goal of having a political satire, because if you think about the participation rate for elections, we've actually been having over 70% for the past 40 years, and even though in the US there are so many political satirists, they usually have only about 40 to 50%. So if you're considering that we want people to participate in elections more and exercise their political rights, is it the case that political satires are necessary for that kind of function? That I just wanted to add that point to your question.
Okay, so I think you're right about finding a new way, probably, for how to organize in a way political satire, because I base my research on my experiences, and because I'm from a Western country, so probably I should have thought a little bit more about other countries which have a different society than mine. And I'm not saying, it seems like I said that political satire, we should make fun of politicians, or we should make fun of everyone. Of course, politics, we need to take it seriously, because we're voting for these people. But I feel that from my experience, using this kind of programs actually could be helpful for some people, because at least for the shows I watch, usually comedians state their sources, so you can actually go through each articles they're quoting while talking about a certain topic. So that's why I think mainly political satire is important for the society in general, because you can get informed, and because I think, at least my country, people are getting lazier and lazier, and they don't really want to read articles or buy newspapers. They just scroll through the internet, and sometimes while scrolling through the internet, you don't really care about reading about everything. So if someone talks a little bit more about a topic, I think it could be useful, and of course doing it with a little bit of fun may be easier for people to find it more interesting to get into politics. But anyways, I do think Eastern countries and they should find a way of doing political satire in their way without not respecting people and doing it a little bit differently as we're doing right now. And for the second question, actually thinking about it, it's true. It's not like in the previous elections in Italy, the rate was pretty low compared to the previous ones, even if it was really, really a long time ago. So I don't think the purpose of political satire is to get people to vote in a way, like to go there and vote. But it's just for information, to getting informed in a different way and not through the traditional platforms. So I hope I answered your question. Thank you very much.
Any last comments? Questions? So thank you both speakers and panelists for providing your input on different aspects of society. And as for me, I also wondered about whether I overlooked any cultural norms that were embedded in the textbooks that we read and in everyday life that we engage with our elderly people or my family members, friends, and my foreigner friends. And in a way, that's why I tied these two presentations together, because there could be so many things that we just take for granted without properly understanding what goes behind different cultures. So it was wonderful to hear about diverse opinions about how we could improve or perhaps mediate different aspects about Korean culture. So thank you for the first session speakers and panelists. We ended a little bit earlier, so we'll take break from 11 to 17 to 27 so that we can get back at 11:27.
Hello, my friends. I'm going to talk about the green economy and the green growth and how to measure the social impact, especially social impact, and specifically in Korea. And why Korea? Because Korea already have successful actions and steps already well done and implemented related to green economy and green growth. But still one of the missing of these efficiencies is the social impact. For this reason, I selected Korea and I mentioned about social impact. My slides are going to talk about the intro, talk about briefly about the problems and then definitions. What about the green economy and the green growth? Third point about the actions of the policies that government already done. And the fourth point is empirical and theoretical analysis. The last point is policy recommendations. Yes. Well, here, if we read here, you can find the problems about the green economy and the green growth. Still, the point of argument and still recent debate, because almost not only in Korea, maybe internationally and globally, focus about the economical issue and the environmental issue rather than social impact. Second point here, we focus about Korea. During the green growth, you can find that you need high technology and you need highly skilled laborers. For these reasons, you can find the SMEs and the non-workers and also workers working in SMEs enterprises. You can enjoy with little percentage of the benefits or returns of the green growth. Third point, even the Korea, as I mentioned, success and they already make amazing and impressive actions, but still there is a lot of actions you need to do. Is there anybody listen here about the green economy before? Anyway, the green economy, like any economics in the world, have some outcomes and some objectives. one of these objectives and outcomes of the green economy to improve the human well-being and the social equality, and also focus in depth but the difference between any economics and the green economy, focus about environmental issues, how to decrease, how to reduce pollution, how to reduce any shortage in environmental issue during the economic growth. Second, so this is definition from United Nations Environmental, and the third definition mention also is what the green economy. Green economy describes the economic growth and environmental responsibility, with as well as supporting progress on social development, with besides all some progress in industry or some products. The last definition from green economy collecting, with this also definitions, you can about provide better quality of life for ecological or environmental limits. This also one of the policy or the strategy of Korean government. Here we transfer to green growth. If we talk about green growth like increased our focus about how to assessment overall social welfare and the social justice, but take in consideration reducing the environmental risk and environmental disinefficiencies. OECD also mentioned another definitions. I will try to strengthen economic growth and with ensuring natural assets and how to provide or increase utilization of resources or environmental issues. Another definitions also, but this is about the presidential green growth committee here in Korea. We can read here, focus about reduce greenhouse gases and environmental pollution. Then maintain environmental preservation and the economic growth. Here also, if we read here, we can get the most important issue, the most important point. Here in this definition, the Korean government didn't mention about anything about social impact. Yes. In these slides, I try to explain the third point, what the steps the government already. Starting with 2018, 2008, Korean government established a presidential committee for green growth, and then make the plan from 2009 to make a 5 plan for development, and then at the end of 2009 or the early of 2010 already make a legislation for green growth and the green economy. Also in the another this frame you can find and try to describe or explain what is the plans that already government. This is the big umbrella, national strategy for green growth from 2009 up to 2050, and this is the first 5-year plan, and the second one from 2014 up to 2019. Here I try to be very specifically about timeline. As I mentioned, 2009 already make our establishment committee. 2010 already make an institution, and 2009 up 2013 make the first 5-year plan. The second 5 plan in 2014 up 2018. Here's I need to explain more important points here. The difference between this plan and this plan is the most important here. The successful point already make law or legislation, institutional. But here, Korean government try to make focus about outcomes, about try to focus more in details about analysis, some indicators and the policy. And also after President's part, the after he finished 2013, he mentioned try to make adjustment our modification after 2013. Already also in legislation, the presidential committee for green growth already converted to become just Prime Minister's Green Growth Committee. Try to focus also, as I mentioned, in depth about more analysis, more plans, more indicators, more measurement, not only just the law. Yeah, here transfer to more in-depth analysis, empirical and theoretical, and some figures. If we show here the problems, Korea in 2006. Okay, I focus, as I mentioned, because I focus about social impact, energy equity, the indicators to measure energy equity, energy poverty. It lost 2006. It was 7%. The target 2030 it was to be 0. But 2016 we can find the number here increased, not decreased, which means there is some deficiencies in social impact. Yeah. Why I bought this? Try here focus in depth about the legal law and about the plans. Here you can find the presidential committee just divided to green growth strategy, committee of climate change, committee of energy, green technology. There is anybody here observe committee for social impact or social? There is no here. Also, if we find here two measures, just 3 strategy and 10 policy directions. Yes, focus about climate change. The second strategy, creation and the new growth. Third one, improvement quality life. Just quality life. In terms of creation green, how to reduce low carbon, about environmental issues. Not focus about how to improve social impact. In terms of improve welfare or improve, reduce poverty. Another comparisons, this comparison from international commerce chambers. Here make a 10 conditions for transition to the clear or solid green economy. Okay, and here in another side, the long-term green growth transformation in Korea, which means 2050. If you read, you can find similarity by 70% or 80%. But here you can find the most important factors: social innovation, in terms of awareness, educational skills, and employment. Employment in terms increase the try to create new jobs, try to increase about vocational, make qualified employees, and try to awareness people toward this circular economy and the green economy. Here, if you read all this, you never find anything about social impact, even in longer-term green growth. For this, next in my recommendation, I recommended some issues about this perspective. And also there is one weak point here: stakeholders. Stakeholders, just private sectors, green growth consultative groups, and the presidential committees. It must one of the most important stakeholders. Labor is already working in this field. Labor organizations, non-workers, low-income citizens. It must be one of the most important stakeholders. It must listen for these people to achieve sustainability. Here, if you achieve these models, try to how transfer from our transformation from green growth and the green economy to be sustainability, which the name is called inclusive green growth. Did you see here one of the most important for sustainable development or inclusive green growth social dimension? Yes. At the end, my conclusion here, I mention these these users, because he make very fancy our proposal. What's the meaning of green growth? It must take in your consideration, it's okay, utilization natural resources, already Korea in good position, but still we need to improve overall social welfare for building green growth. As a result of this, we can toward this to sustainable development. Okay, also if we focus about the green job policy in the future, it must take in your consideration is to make a balance or trade-off between environmental issues, economic issue, and social issue. Secondly, try to create measurements that what already, we successful in green growth and the green economy, but in terms of social impact, what the positive impact of green growth to reduce poverty or like increase gender equality or improve life for people, life quality for poor people or low income. For this, I recommended Korean to make to measure shortage of social impact. The third point, attain sustainable social transformation. It must join, as I mentioned, it must join organization of labors, especially workers, our non-workers, already our workers working in this field. The last one, as I mentioned in long-term plan and the national plan, I need to create committee, special committee establishment, special committee for social perspectives. This committee focus about how to measure social perspective and the indicators during the national plan. And there are also some of models for social goals. This is the last point, my advice. Okay, please a change you want to see. Thank you.
Right on time. So thank you, Ahmed. And so our last speaker for today, Amali, will speak about the research question. Is it only a dream for the older generation and the younger generation in Korea to live in harmony?
So, hello everyone. I see I can still say good morning. And are you guys awake? Okay, so please bear with me these 10 to 15 minutes. I will try to speak fast as possible. So as you can see, my name is Amali and I'm from Sri Lanka. I'm studying at Han국국제교류재단 of Foreign Studies. Okay, so as you guys can see, my topic is related to generation gap, which is a universal phenomenon. So the question is it only a dream for the older generation and the younger generation in Korea to live in harmony? So why I chose this question for my essay? Actually, many of us were listening to the lectures a few weeks ago, I guess, in here. So when I was listening to the lectures related to the Korean democracy with the Professor Park, and also related to Korean economy with the Professor Ham, if I pronounce well. So, and I heard kind of mixed ideas, and when it comes to the Korean democracy, I learned about that, how the democracy movements went, and how this old old generation, the Korean old people went through in hard times, and how they what kind of things they had to face. And also when it comes to the Korean economic lecture, then I heard that there's this situation currently in Korea about the current economy, and also we show some graph related to the decreasing of the labor force. So when I was listening these things, then something came to my mind related to generation gaps. So that leads me to this question, and I wrote my essay. So let's move on. So these are my contents. I will talk about a little bit of these things. So before I move to the definition, I would like to say about some little bit of history. So the term generation gap came to the current stage around 1960 with the rise of baby boomers or the young generations. Actually, according to the history.com that they wrote, based on a video which called Ask Steve, if you know about it. So this Steve Gilliam, he has explained that in the beginning there was a bigger gap between baby boomers themselves than them and the greatest generation. So anyhow, they seems to go against everything, not only their parents, not only the elders, but even members among their age group. So, and we all know that this generation gap has become a very big issue in current society, not only in Korea but in other countries, because it leads to many conflicts in terms of economy or social or psychological issues. So, moving on to the definitions. I assume that you all might have your own definition about generation gap in your words, right? So if I had to define it, I would say that it's the difference of perspectives that among people, those who belongs to different age groups, in terms of how they see the world, or how they respect things, and how they believe, or how they admire things. However, so as you can see, I found like few different definitions. If you allow me to read one, so according to the dictionary of Cambridge, so I found that they define generation gap as a situation in which older and young people do not understand each other because of their different experiences, opinions, habits, and behavior. So it's very clear that actually this is not coming from outside, it's come from inside, because just because we are different in our ages, we have this different mind frame, I would say, different mind frame. We have different ideas, opinions, so that's why we have this gap between us. So next is about the types of generation. As I noticed, we can divide the generation that we have in current society in 5 groups. So first is silent generation, or the greatest generation, and then the baby boomers, and generation X, and millennials, and generation Z. So I would say, and I think I need to say that millennials, some people use they as generation Y. So because they belongs to different time period of the history, so they have different experience in their life. And when it comes to the old generation, I think they had more difficulties comparing to the youngest in today. So based on those things, they have their own values that they admire in their lives. So moving on to the Korea. So in regards to Korea, the generation gap is possibly recognizable in different ways by the people and the circumstance. So under the circumstance of Korean history, this old generation, they had to went through historical triggers and struggles more than youngest of today, as I mentioned. So since we all in here in Korea, I assume that we all have at least basic knowledge of Korean history. So we know that we had this Japanese colonization time period, and also we had Korean War, and this and also economic crisis and economic development things. So those time periods may have effect to their own ideas and own their political identities or their beliefs in their life. And so when it comes to the reasons, what do you think about the reasons? What are the reasons, possible reasons for the generation gap in Korea or even in your countries? Would you mind to talk if you have any ideas? No? No one? Yes, please. What do you think? What are the reasons?
I think it's technological innovation. Since the smartphones and other stuffs changed our society so fast and so radical, so it might happen to our country. I mean Korea as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I agree with you. And as you can see, there are so many different reasons. But among them, I selected 3 reasons, which are actually, I can't separate them. They are really connected or overlapping each other. So youth unemployment and aging population and lack of communication, which is very related to what my friend said. So then, when it comes to youth unemployment in Korea, as you can see here, the youth unemployment rate has been increased throughout the years. So which means there are lots of young Koreans, those who are outside, they are looking for jobs. And those who already graduated, there are people still in the line searching for the jobs or waiting for the jobs. And then, how it's related to the generation gap? Because the Korean old people, they are like still working, and the retirement ages are. I think the retirement ages are also in about 50 to 60. So the young people, they have to wait for a long time, and also when the young people still they don't have job opportunities, but they have to like pay taxes or do things to survive and earn money and have incomes, and this might leads them to have this misunderstanding in their mind. So this will lead them to like treat in harsh way to the old people, old generation. And in the other hand, old aging population, as you can see in the graph, there are many old Korean people. I mean, which is common that when we go outside, we can see more Korean old people than Korean young people. I think in my point of view. So, and as it was recorded in the 2017 census report, the aging population index has increased by 7.2 from 100.1 in 2016 to 100.3 in 2017. So, what does this mean? When the aging population is increasing, they are still require some welfare facilities. So the government needs to provide them welfare facilities for their health care or their housing thing. And I'm aware that there are some programs that Korean governments are conducting or planning for the Korean old people. But still, when the labor force are decreasing and also there is this unemployment problem, then all the burden of providing this welfare and everything are put on their limited workforce. So, and the next thing is lack of communication. So lack of communication is very related to the confusing thing that what my previous presenter mentioned, because we know that in Korean traditional society there are some barriers to reach to old people or even young people. We have to follow the rules, I would say social ethics, like we have to use these very honorific words and things when we communicate with elders, and sometimes it's not easy to be open to them. And not only these traditional barriers, but also when it comes to today, we have what we have is this technological advancement. In fact, it's not a bad thing. We need technology in our life, but since we see that more and more people are getting addicted to these electronic devices and things, then we are going far away from the communication. And also, because we have these different age groups, we have different types of communicating. Like we use different types of material or the ways to communicate. For example, like young people, we like to communicate via maybe text or the message or the phones, or sometimes even nowadays we have even voice message. We don't like to type, right? We just use the voice message. But considering about the old people, they like to talk face-to-face meet or talk, or sometimes and when it comes to official things they use email or things. So still there are a few barriers when it comes to communicate. So we need to bridging the generation gap. We need to bring these generations together. But how? It's not actually easy homework for all of us, not only the Korean people, but there are so many obstacles and barriers. But I thought regarding the unemployment, we can use this fourth revolution as a solution, because we all know that Korea has very advanced technologies. So how about if Korean government could invest more in this field and providing more training to the young people to help them to develop their skills. For example, like they can use the fields such as nanotechnology or 3D printing or energy storage. I assume that already there are those kind of programs, but if the Korean government or the education system could concern about this field and invest more and train more people and let the investors even from abroad to come and do the programs, then it will help to the unemployment problem, and eventually maybe people will get at least some job opportunities. And when it comes to the young generation, young people, I think it's easy to train them with the technological things. And also, I would like to suggest another thing regarding the aging population, and it's also related to the lack of communication. How about if we could introduce mentoring system? I think there are some mentoring system when it comes to the kids, like grandmas playing with the kids and telling stories. But how about if we can let them to join with the young people, like university students or other young people in the society, or organizing kind of conferences or talk series, sharing about their experience and stories, and also listening to the young people's problems and encourage each other's. This maybe not easy, but if we use what we have today, mostly we have these mass medias. We have TV and we have internet and we have everything, especially when it comes to Korea. There are lots of K-pop things. like young idol groups and also the popular actors or actors. So how about if we use them to promote and bring these generations together and let them to share in their differences at the same time to let them to embrace the differences and accept themselves. So even though it takes time, but I think if we all take a step together and do whatever we can do as much as possible, and also as international students, if we share our knowledge and ideas together with the Korean people and the Korean society, then maybe it will not a dream. One day, and eventually, we may be able to live in harmony, in hope, as well as workplace, regardless the age gap. So, give some love. Thank you.
All right, let's hear from the panelists first. Sue.
Thank you so much for your papers and presentations. I'm happy to be able to participate in the 2019 Next Generation Conference as a discussant. I grew up in Canada, and while Canada faces its own environmental challenges, I personally felt affected by the difference in air quality when I arrived in Seoul last year. Thus, your paper was timely and relatable for me in the way that climate change affects all of us in our daily lives in Seoul. It was interesting to read and hear about Korea's approach to green growth and how the contestations regarding green growth manifest in Korea. Toronto, the city I'm from, implemented cap-and-trade policies in 2016 by the Liberal government. But these policies set a limit on carbon emissions by companies who are then given emissions permits. However, just last year, Ontario passed legislation to repeal the province's cap-and-trade policy by a more conservative government. I mention this because the presenter provided us with an example of green growth policies, his presidential committee on green growth, framework act on low carbon green growth, and etc. to support his argument on how, despite transformative aims, it remains uncertain on how specific measures have helped achieve the transformation. Critics have argued that green growth policies introduced by the Lee administration is simply another name for conventional development, as it focuses on economic growth via environmental means and neglects the empowerment of the public for the creation of a green society, which you mentioned. While you expounded on national strategy for green growth up to 2050, I think it would be helpful to elaborate on how different administrations, both conservative and liberal, further make contestable already hard to achieve goals regarding the environment. For example, why did Park Geun-hye begin to distance, or why did Park Geun-hye's administration begin to distance itself from green growth policies? And what are the green growth policies of the Moon Jae-in administration? What are the implications that other factors might have in propelling such policies? Are further questions that I had for your paper. Regarding Amali's paper on her question on how different generations can live in harmony in Korea, I find it no coincidence that just yesterday I was able to attend an event hosted by EAI titled Korea-Japan Relations, Where Are We Headed? An intergenerational candid discussion. The panelists range from ages 20 to 70, and it was interesting to listen to their various perspectives on Korea-Japan relations. I think Amali's paper and yesterday's event shed light on the importance and significance of the generation gap and the conflicts that arise from a lack of understanding of different generations, which is a bit reductive. But I thought that you tackled a very imperative and difficult question and reported that different generations face multifarious challenges and intensify this conflict. You suggested greater communication, more social welfare policies, and job security, but in addition to those issues and suggestions, I thought that it would be interesting to expound on the idea of identity. How are the tensions among generations related to identity? How do youths in Korea identify themselves as they struggle to compete with not only Korean nationals, but with individuals from all over the world in an age of globalization? In contrast, not so much in a similar struggle, but how do the older generation identify themselves? Is identity an issue that resonates only with youth? I think that these kinds of questions can perhaps further be explored.
Thank you, Sue. Joel, if you have your comments.
Yes, so I'm going to comment on the paper about the generational gap, and also as an intern at EAI, I also feel compelled to mention this event that we hosted just yesterday, which I was also going to bring up. But thank you, Sue, for stealing my entire thunder. So I'm from Sweden. And it's, which has been mentioned a few times today, also earlier in the discussion about Confucianism, and always in the sense that it's extremely different from Korea in many social aspects. So that's kind of the perspective which I'm coming from here. Because you ask in the title of your paper, is it only a dream for the different generations to live in harmony? And so maybe my question that I would like to ask, and I'll explain where I'm coming from, is harmony really always desirable? Because I think that disharmony can, in some ways, become a kind of a catalyst of change. So one example is a friend of mine, a Korean friend of mine, who decided a few years back that she was going to move out of her family home before getting married, which is it's not unheard of in Korea, but it was not received well by her parents. And after having done so, she really felt like this was very good for her kind of personal growth, and also to just become more of an independent person, even though that created some disharmony within the kind of the family. So this was definitely to tie back to the previous discussion on Confucianism, going against certain very, let's say, traditional values in Korea, but in the end, at least for my friend, this ended up becoming a very like this disharmony actually created some benefits, at least for her, and in the long run, that was something that they could still kind of overcome. So yeah, basically that's my question: is harmony really always something that you have to strive for, or doesn't society somewhat move forward through chaos, so to speak? Thank you.
All right, Amali, keep that in mind. Keep his question in mind. One. Comments.
네, 발표 잘 들었습니다. 저는 제너레이션 갭에 대해서 피드백을 좀 해봤습니다. 그래서 저는 청년의 취업률 문제, 고령화 문제, 그리고 소통의 문제가 저는 세대 차이를 덮어내는 중요 요소라고 생각을 하기 때문에 뛰어난 지적 요소라고 생각을 합니다. 그러나 경제적 문제와 고령화 문제는 세대의 단순한 차이를 넘어 세대의 갈등을 불러일으킬 요소가 있다고 생각을 합니다. 예를 들어서 청년층은 취업을 꿈꾸는데 또 고령화 세대에서도 나름대로의 빈곤 문제가 계속 발생하고 있습니다. 그리고 노력층 빈곤 문제를 해결하기 위해서는 정년을 연장을 하거나 은퇴 시기를 늦춰서 정년을 연장을 하거나 이들에 대한 복지를 늘려야 되는데 이는 다시 청년층에 대한 부담으로 들어갑니다. 따라서 이들의 차이는 단순한 사고 인식의 차이를 넘어서 생존의 문제에서 갈등으로 이어질 여지가 있다고 생각을 하는데 이 부분에 대한 소개가 조금 적었고 하모니를 위해서는 조화를 위해서는 이러한 차이를 넘어선 갈등 해소가 필요한데 이 부분에 대한 소개가 적었다고 생각합니다. 그리고 커뮤니케이션의 문제는 세대 차이를 줄이기 위해서는 필수적인 요소라고 생각을 합니다. 그렇기 위해서는 상호 간에 대화를 할 수 있는 자리를 만들어야 되고 사랑을 주는 것을 통해서도 충분히 이루어질 수 있는 것이 있다고 생각합니다. 하지만 한국에서 세대 간에 상호소통이 일어나지 않는 근본 원인은 소통을 할 수 있는 자리가 적기 때문이 아니라 서로가 상대방을 이해할 수 없는 문화가 기반에 있다고 생각합니다. 예를 들어 현재 청년 세대에서는 개인주의적인 인식이나 탈물질주의적인 인식이 늘어나고 있고 수직적인 관계보다는 수평적인 관계에서 상대방과 대화하는 것입니다. 그러나 아직도 중장년층 세대, 노년 세대에서는 그러한 수직적인 가치가 강하고 유교 문화에서 기본한 수직적인 가치가 주되며 개인보다는 공동체를 중시합니다. 따라서 당연히 사랑을 기반으로 운영되는 가족 내에서도 서로 간에 이해를 하기가 어렵습니다. 예를 들어 부모와 자식 간의 소통이 제대로 이루어지지 않고 있는 상황에서 소통의 문제를 근본적으로 해결하기 위해서는 이러한 문화의 문제가 해결되어야 한다고 생각을 합니다. 또한 4차 산업혁명과 4차 산업혁명을 통해 실업률을 완화하고 멘토링 제도를 통한 제도도 저는 충분히 의의가 있다고 생각을 했습니다. 그러나 그것을 위해서 필요한 것은 정부의 역할이라고 생각을 했는데 현재의 정부가 사회 통합을 위해 얼마나 노력을 하고 있는가도 눈여겨봐야 할 지점이라고 생각을 했습니다. 대다수가 민주화 세대 혹은 중장년층 세대와 기성세대로 이루어져 있는 현재 한국의 의회 구성에서 과연 청년을 위한 정책을 가능하고 청년의 권리를 대변하지 않는 국가에서 청년과 기성세대가 조화롭게 소통해 나갈 수 있는지 의견과 이 부분을 감사합니다.
Thank you. Our last panelist.
먼저 이런 좋은 자리를 마련해주신 KF와 EAI는 감사 인사를 드리며 이번 토론을 맡게 되어서 굉장히 영광입니다. 일단 굉장히 발표 잘 들었고요. 저는 평소에 환경에 대해서 그렇게 많은 관심을 가지지 못했었는데 이번 발표를 준비하면서 토론을 준비하면서 많은 관심을 가질 수 있어서 감사의 인사를 드리고 싶습니다. 굉장히 놀라웠던 부분은 외국임에도 불구하고 한국의 국가 정책을 이렇게 자세히 조사하였다는 점에서 굉장히 놀랐습니다. 그래서 이 부분에 대해서는 조사가 굉장히 쉽지 않았을 텐데 많은 조사를 하신 것 같아가지고 특히 흥미로웠던 부분은 녹색 경제와 녹색 성장에 대한 정의를 다루고 여기에 맞춰서 논의를 진행하신 부분이 굉장히 재미있었습니다. 또한 녹색 성장의 필요 조건으로서 사회적 혁신이 필요하다는 부분을 밝히고 또 저희가 우리나라 한국에 더 좋은 정책으로 나가기 위해서는 포용적인 녹색 성장이 필요하고 이를 위해서 제일 중요한 필요 조건으로서 이해 당사자의 의사소통, 특히 노동자의 참여가 필요하다고 관계를 밝힌 부분은 앞으로 한국 사회가 어떤 지점을 향해 나아가야 되는지에 대한 이정표를 밝혔다는 점에서 굉장히 재미있게 들었습니다. 제가 말씀드리고 싶은 부분은 세 가지인데요. 첫 번째로 한국에 있어서 녹색 성장 담론이 나온 배경을 밝히면서 어떻게 이런 관계가 규정되었는지, 그러니까 일자리와 왜 녹색 성장이 규정될 수밖에 없었는지를 밝혀드리고 싶습니다. 그래서 먼저 UN 환경계 말씀해 주셨듯이 UNEP라고 인용을 드려주신 게 있었는데요. 여기서 크게 말하는 부분은 환경을 보존하면서 일자리 창출하는 것은 굉장한 역관계를 가지고 있다. 그러니까 다시 말해서 환경을 보존하고 보호하는 규제를 강화할수록 일자리 창출에는 악영향을 미칠 수 있다라고 밝히고 있는데 이제 이런 거에 대해서 사람들은 이제 환경 보존을 덜 하면서 일자리를 만들면 되지 않을까라는 궁금증을 가지게 되었고 이러한 논의가 많이 이루어지면서 이명박 정부가 들어서면서 크게 공약을 내세운 게 두 가지인데 하나가 녹색 성장과 747 공약이에요. 그래서 747 공약 같은 게 뭐냐면은 국내 경제 성장률을 7%로 유지하면서 국민 소득을 4만 불로 만들면서 세계 7위의 경제 대국으로 한국을 만든다는 것과 이제 녹색 성장이 가장 밀접한 관계를 가지고 있는 대표적인 두 가지 공약인데 그렇기 때문에 이제 녹색 성장이라는 것은 일자리를 창출하는 데 실현이 될 수밖에 없었던 게 한국 녹색 성장의 핵심입니다. 그래가지고 그러기 위해서는 일자리를 만들기 위해서는 기존 산업에서 인력이 대체되던가 또는 신규 일자리를 창출해야 되는데 이런 과정에서 아까 전에 말씀해 주셨듯이 숙련도의 차이라든지 그런 혜택이 공평하게 돌아가지 못하는 그런 결과가 나와서 사회적인 정의의 문제가 대두된 것 같습니다. 그리고 제가 두 번째로 말씀하고 싶었던 부분은 사회적 영향을 굉장히 에세이에서 중요한 부분으로 언급을 하셨는데 이게 저는 글을 읽으면서 명확히 잘 이해가 되지 않았던 부분이 있습니다. 아마도 그 이유는 앞선 정의, 그러니까 녹색 경제와 녹색 성장에 대한 정의 부분이 상당히 긴 부분에 할애돼서 서술이 되었고 그리고 한국의 녹색 성장 정책이 좀 큰 비중으로 다뤄졌기 때문에 이 부분을 이해하는 데 있어서 문제가 있었던 것 같습니다. 그래서 제가 이해한 바로는 숙련도 차이에 따른 목사 일자리 정책에 대한 혜택이 공평하게 돌아가야 된다는 부분과 또 뒤에 부분에 있어서 에너지의 평등성, 삶의 질이라든지 복지, 빈곤에 있어서 이런 부분을 충분히 감안해야 된다는 부분이었는데, 그러면서도 이런 좋은 부분이 에세이에서 어떻게 더 드러나면 좋을까라는 생각을 하게 되었는데, 대중 참여가 중요하다라고 말씀을 해주셨는데, 제가 생각하기에는 이 대중 참여가 가능한 부분, 그러니까 영역을 구체화시켜줄 수는 어땠을까라는 생각이 듭니다. 그래서 아직 한국에 있어서 가장 뜨거운 논의는 아직도 그 녹색 성장의 핵심인 환경을 보존하면서 경제를 개발해야 된다라는 부분에 있어서 환경을 그러면 어떻게 보존할 것이냐, 온실가스를 줄이면서 저탄소 배출을 줄이면서까지도 과연 성장을 할 수 있느냐라는 게 핵심이거든요. 근데 그러기 위해서는 탈원전이라든지 기존의 화석 연료를 이용한 그 경제 성장에 대해서는 이런 구조를 바꿔야 되는데, 아직까지 이런 논의가 지금도 진행 중이고 뜨거운 강자이기 때문에 사회적 혜택이 어떻게 골고루 돌아갈지에 대한 부분에 있어서는 아직 논의가 미흡한 것 같습니다. 그래서 이 앞서 말했듯이 경제 개발의 혜택이 골고루 돌아가는 데 있어서의 사회 정의에 대중의 참여가 필요하다라고 이런 영역을 구체화시켜 주시면 논의가 조금 더 풍부하고 명확하게 전달되지 않을까라는 생각이 들었습니다. 그래서 논의 잘 들었고 정말 재미있는 시간이었습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you. So if the speakers can reply to the panelists first. Ahmed, are you ready?
For great commitment. Sorry, your question, what's the difference between policies of green growth and the green economy, and the second question is how to explain between the presidential committee green growth and the green growth committee. I didn't get your questions.
I guess I didn't have specific questions regarding the paper. I simply suggested ways or further questions we might want to explore in the future.
For your comments about there is negative relationship between green growth and create jobs, no, with full respect, because now as a trend, recent trends of green growth, circular economy, bioeconomy, and if you go, I think, to Central Park in June, you can find a big cluster as samples for biotechnology and nanotechnology, and still also Korea, one of the advanced country in circular economy and bioeconomy. This is a recent trends of this. My issue about must focus about I need make a balance between. Yeah, you need high skills. Also, I think also related to negative relationship. I think there is hand river project already done. I read there is a lot of at this time a lot of high employees working in this project. I am sure logically if there is a lot of project already done in green growth and green economy, you can create logically as a demand and supply. You can find a lot of jobs. About my issue about the contradiction between high calibers, yes, you are already unique as advanced as a green economy, one of the advances economics or new economy. You need also, but still also from a social impact, we need the people not unqualified or have low skills. It must also create some training centers for these people to keep in touch or catch this advanced trend in high skills. The third point, you are correct about public participation. Already, I try to focus simply about two issues. Try to invite the, I don't know what in Korea, what's the name here, organization for laborers. And it must, because organization of laborers as one of stakeholders, it must be included in this, because this maybe have like statistical information about the already people unqualified or unlearned working in these projects. You can gathering this information from labor organizations and also labor of organization, maybe like working as a mediators to select some of leaders or some of highly qualified from people working in these sectors, to gathering a lot of recommendations and gathering all these recommendations to send for national plan or committee of green growth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, and thank you, Mr. for your recommendations and suggestions. I hope to add those points in my essays when I develop it. And thank you, Joel, and for your question. Is how many always desirable should we go forward? Why don't we try? We should always go forward. But the point is, like, when we go forward, is it okay to go without considering what other things that around us? Like, for example, generation gap or the unemployment. It's not only about the unemployment and aging population. It's not only about the causes to the generation gap, but it's actually a social issue when it comes to themselves. So, but if we can do things that we can do as people when we go forward with our day-to-day works or day-to-day activities, or as a society or community, I think it's still we need to care about the issues that we have to focus on, and when those points, then sometimes harmony is not always that we can have with us, but if there's any possibilities, then why don't we give it a try? And for your comments and questions, as I understood, I agree with what you said, because unemployment or aging growth is not just about the generation gap, but when it comes to the lack of understanding is the cause, and that leads to the conflict of these people and as a community, as a society. So, and also you mentioned about their interests are really different. Like, for example, I think you mentioned that too, the young people, they have their personal interest. As I noticed, like, they want to have maybe stable future or the economic things, and they want to achieve their things, and they want to connect with more modern things. They are more passionate with trends, universal trends, and they want to also keep connect with the technologies and those things. But at the same time, when it comes to the old generation or old people in our society, they are more concerned about the family, or they are more concerned about social issues or our community, our society. So I think that's why they, in the past also, they dedicated themselves when it comes to the necessity of national issues or country issues, because they care more about this bigger image of the society rather than their personal interest. And also, you mentioned about the government role when it comes to providing welfare or the investment in the fourth revolution field, advanced technology field. In my point of view, I think, like, of course, government, they need to work and they have responsibility to take care of the things, the problems that we have in our country. But if we just say, okay, we just voted them, we just elected, then now they have to do it. Oh, we don't care, we don't want. Then it's not fair. As we criticize the government when they are going the wrong way or when they are doing some like not good things, then at the same time we need to encourage them, or we need to suggest or bring solution or ideas to them, to the government, in order to find possible solution to the current issues in our society. So I think in regards of that, we as the people, as the citizens, we also have some responsibility, not only about the government. So I think we need to work together. It doesn't matter is it about generation gap or any other issues. I think it's important. We all need to work together in everyday parts. Yeah, thank you.
Also, as I mentioned, the most important point, I suggest to create a social committee through social committee during the national Green Growth Committee, under the supervision of Green Growth Committee. One of the tasks or responsibility by social committee, you can gathering this information and you can make a lot of meeting with public sectors or servants or workers or labor organization. Also, I mention this because as an official, I know it's easy to make like some committee because it's difficult to go to like select some random citizen or random workers. So for this, by social committee, one of the tasks, you can gathering and make a meeting and discussion and surveys with these people to take all barriers and all obstacles that already face these workers or non-workers to help to get this, to gathering this recommendation, and you can offer in national level.
Thank you. Any comments from the floor?
Thank you so much. I'm very interested about the green growth. So, as your topic about the assessment of social impact and some of policy recommendation there. So, when we are talking about the social impact, it is related with the. Now we are living the fourth industrial revolutions. So the paradigm is changed, the world is changed, and the people is changed, the mindset is changed. Korea is a country that now developing the smart cities, a lot of smart cities. And as your policy recommendations, you didn't consider, maybe I'm wrong, but now we are talking about the smart cities, government 4.0. So you don't mention your policy recommendations. You don't consider that things in your policy recommendations, because I think it's one of the government roles, very important in the policy recommendations. Thank you.
You mean there is like trade-off between socio-economy and the force? Okay, but as if you go to sustainable development goals, one of the most goals is in vector to gender equality, like reduce poverty and reduce equality. How to make equality in social society without, okay, already Korea we have highly skilled laborers, highly employees, but still another people we need also, because with speed trends in high technology, these people maybe lost a lot of vacancies, and also SMEs between this collecting between cluster between big corporations and SMEs, because they didn't have enough financing and enough resources like this. For this, it must make a balance between these people, between these big corporations and SMEs, enterprises, and also between high skills and lower skills employees. Make a balance between.
And to add on, there were points that he added about these aspects in the first draft, but we advise that he narrowed down a specific theme within the environmental dimension and how it's related to social aspects, and so that could be also a reason why he didn't really delve into smart cities. And there was a second. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. Thank you for the presentation, but I have a question for Amali. Sorry. And do you think that the harmony that you mentioned in your paper can create a risk for a society in which capitalist and democratic society? Just because I'm asking this question, I think that philosophically, development and progression is just flourished on the basis of struggle in between new and old. So, do you think that is that a trap that you mentioned, or it can be used for another way to develop or another way for progression? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. According to my knowledge, and I think I agree with what you said, and of course it could be a risk, but if we try to use the possibilities to find a way to develop and use it in the useful way. For example, of course we are moving forward in this generation, in this era, so we need new things to follow up. But I mean, still we have some global issues in the world, and even though we have this very advanced technology or other things, that there are some issues that we are not able to find solutions. So, but we have seen in the past, in the historical events, that this old generation that they had experienced, anyhow they had overcome, or anyhow they had find ways to win over those obstacles or the barriers in those eras. So why don't we try to learn from them, and not just ignoring them, but why don't we try to learn from them and get what we can get for the today's society, and just moving forward with those experience or those lessons that we can have from them. So then it will not make a risk for society or riskful events, but it will still let people to move forward smoothly together with old generation too. So that's what I think. Perhaps I'm not correct. Yeah, thank you.
Any last comments or questions? Feedback? Yep.
For Amali's topic, I think that generation gap is a thing that every society basically needs for the development. We just can't see generation gap in a negative perspective. It has a positive perspective as well. It is difficult to make the old generation agree with the new generation in all terms and conditions, or even not if in all terms and conditions, but even if 50-50, because mostly it happens that you have to first disagree, show a result, and only then the older generation agrees with you. And for the Ahmed's presentation, I really think I have just one suggestion, that Korean government always focuses on top-down approach, the traditional approach. So there needs to be a designing which just doesn't focus on top-down approach but has some different angle to it, as well as the Korean government is it has recently started focusing on participatory governance. So that could be a very good step to decentralize these civil society organizations for more successful green society.
Thank you for all of your thoughts and feedback and comments. Personally, it was really interesting for me to hear how the foreigner students think about Korean community and Korean society and Korean politics and Korean culture. I also lived abroad for 10 years in the States for my studies, and I came back recently. And in the first year, I was really surprised because my students, when I asked them questions, they would stay quiet and then come to me after class and offer their thoughts. And so we have this tendency in Korea to be the model A students. And we show this in the international community sphere as well. And so there are a list of things that we try to improve upon. But then on the other hand, we also recognize that wherever we go, whether it be a developed country or developing country, people want to know about Korea. And so this provided us with an opportunity where we could identify specific things that even international students care about. And I think this gave us an opportunity to reflect for Korean students and Korean people as well to think about what frustrates us in our everyday life. So I think it came down to two main points. Korea, we really strive to reduce poverty in the past 40 years, and because of that, we didn't have time to reflect upon the social dimensions, and many of the speakers today reflected upon that. And so based on your discussions and debates, it gave us room for thought as to how we should tackle some of the social issues that we've been facing. And so thank you for really pinning down on specific issues that we should care about. The second point is related to what Nikita just mentioned. So we have a tendency to do things top down, but Korean government is also trying to foster something called Citizen Science Lab or Living Lab, and this has been presented more in European countries, including Italy. And so this is basically asking citizens to hold politicians accountable so that people participate in committees and you can also take an action in legislation and actual policies. And so perhaps now for this generation of Korean voters, it's time to really engage in politics. Even if you can't have a political satirist, you can actually participate in whatever law you want to implement in Korean society. So that with that takeaway, let's just give everybody a big applause. And so I think this is a really great transition to the award ceremony.
Yeah, thank you so much for an insightful discussion on Korean society. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the award ceremony. The award will be given to participants by Professor Yoon, and please give a warm round of applause when the recipients come up to the stage.
We'll award the second place first. This was really difficult for us because everybody had really great essays and presentation. So we decided to award people based on topic that we usually gloss over in Korean society and the transition that they showed from the essay plan to the actual essay and the presentation. Here comes the charade. So the Challenger Award. You can see the writing. The Korea Foundation and the East Asia Institute present you this award in honor of your achievement at the essay competition for the 2019 Next Generation Conference. So The second award goes to Ahmed.
가까이. 네, 1, 2.
And the grand award goes to Bestie.